Open heart, open mind. Hello, everyone. Once again, I welcome you to the Satwa Project, an online official platform of the Satwa Project. So today, we are going to embark a new series by the title Dakini Series. So before we start that, I would like to invite an individual who works very hard, manage all the technicalities behind the scene. So I would like to invite Brother Chong on the screen.
Hi, Samisha, and everyone following us and watching tonight. Welcome to our show, and please do like, share, as well as subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. So now back to you, Samisha.
Thank you, Brother Chong. So before we get started with our dialogue, so let me introduce you to our moderator and guest speakers. So this is the topic of our today's discussion. What is Dakini and Dakini Practice, Part 1. So let's get introduced to our today's moderator. So today's program will be moderated by Raymond Lam. Raymond Lam is a senior writer at Buddhist Tour Global. He has been a Chinese Buddhist layman since 2008 and began working for the Buddhist Tour organization in 2010. An alumnus of the School of Oriental and African Studies at the University of Queensland, he is a trustee of the Haythrop Association. So I welcome Raymond Lam to this program. We are very pleased to have you on this program, and thank you so much for helping us to moderate. Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me.
Our first contributor will be Venerable Tenzin Dasel. Venerable Tenzin Dasel is a teacher and leader who has been practicing Buddhism and meditation for over 2 decades. She is the founder of Main Mindfulness Project and serves as the Buddhist spiritual advisor at Bates College and the spiritual program coordinator at Tashigatseling Buddhist Center. She holds many honors and distinction for her work with women, children, and youth throughout the US, India, and the world. We are very pleased to have you in this discussion, Honorable Tenzin Dasel. Thank you so much for joining us.
Very, very happy to be here with you. Look forward to a very invigorating and inspired conversation. I would just like to say, maybe I'd like to say my work encompasses all beings. Maybe it needs to be updated because we'll never leave anybody out of our dedication. But that's very kind of you, a very kind introduction. And thank you, Samiksha. And nice to meet you, Brother Raymond.
Hello, Venerable. Thank you for joining us.
So our next contributor is Sonia Gomes. She is the co-founder of the Satwa project. She is marketing and communication manager, founder and CEO of Spaso Zen Wellness Center in Portugal. She is an international advisor and co-founder at Lotus Heart, NGO in Nepal, working on health and education for women and female empowerment. She is an international advisor in Nepal Buddhist Education and Meditation Center, non-profitable organization in Nepal working in education programs for illiterate adults and children, especially women and young girls. She is also an advisor at Sanghakaya Foundation in India since July 2020, Portugal country director of International Youth Society since September 2020. Her major interest lies in human rights, poverty eradication, female empowerment and development, health and education, gender equity, social business, social entrepreneurship. We are very pleased to have you, Sister Sonia, on this platform.
Thank you
Thank
very
you for
much.
joining us. Mhm.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to see you all. And thank you again. Nice to meet you. Thank you.
Our next contributor is Gloria Chang, Sherab Dorma. Gloria Chang, Sherab Dorma, is a certified Dharma translator and teacher. She has been appointed by her guru, Khenpo Sultrim Gyatso Rinpoche, to teach Tibetan yoga and meditation on emptiness since 2003. As a prolific Dharma translator, Tibetan Chinese English, since 2000, she has published more than 40 books, either for the general public or for retreat courses. Meanwhile, Gloria is also a well received Doha singer who performs Buddhist songs of realization in various associations. Thank you for joining us, Sister Gloria.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me. I'm so looking forward to have conversation with all you very inspiring figures. So thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, everybody. Now I hand over this program to Brother Raymond.
Thanks so much. Well, first of all, a happy evening to everyone. Thank you all for joining us, and thank you for watching as well. I think I'm the odd one out here, and not because of the obvious aspect, but because I am a Chinese Buddhist, and in our tradition, we do not have dakinis in our schema of practice. And so I feel very honored and very excited indeed to be able to assist in moderating a unique conversation about the Dakini, about this figure in the Vajrayana tradition. As I understand, all three of our guests tonight practice and teach in the Vajrayana tradition. Venerable Sonia and Gloria, thank you so much for joining us, and I look forward to learning more from all of you as the evening goes on. And so I actually prepared a set of questions for our guests tonight. And I would like to perhaps start with a more general outline of what Dakini, the word, really means for each of you. So as a practicing Buddhist and as disciples of the Dharma, what does the general figure and archetype of the Dakini mean to you personally? We will explore more technical aspects as time goes on, but for now, what has the figure meant to you personally in your own life? Perhaps we could start with Venerable Tenzin Dasel, if you'd be so kind. Yeah.
Thank you, Brother Raymond. Yes, I think for me, meeting the Dakini within this tradition. So just to back up, I've met Buddhism very personally and very deeply about 20 years ago when I met my root Lama, actually 22 years ago. And so I think I had met the Dakini actually earlier in my life. I think when I was quite young, you would have called the Dakini a tomboy, was the word that would have been used in American culture. And in that moment, as a youth, as a very young child, I was meeting her climbing trees. I was meeting her in the nature, building my little fort out in the backwoods. I was meeting her in all the living things, all the creeping things. I have to say, I still am making peace with the creeping snakes. I'd never really had strong connection with them, but little salamander lizards creeping around by the fire at night, camping with my parents when quite young, and the stars sleeping out underneath in nature. I was really meeting her in myself and existence in a quite very innocent, natural awareness of her presence before I really knew her as an archetype within a tradition. And the first time I really met her that way was then later in my 20s. I was living still this kind of beautiful, adventuresome life and spirit within my heart, and living in Berlin, Germany, after the wall came down, and living with a big community of women and men, people from all around the world that was very vibrant. You were all, think, maybe not born yet, but in the 90s, right after the wall opened, it was a very vital time in Germany as things were reuniting and this wholeness was coming together between the East and West. So just riding my bicycle everywhere, making music, playing a lot in the arts, dancing everywhere. If you found old footage, you'd see that. And so she was still flowing through my experience very viscerally, very embodied. And yet still, I didn't really see an archetype outside of that. I just had a knowing within my own experience. And then one day, I think back in about 94 or 95, I got a scroll in the mail from my father, and I opened it up, and inside was this beautiful poster, of this amazing image of a female divinity, for the lack of, I won't even say Dakini yet, because I still don't even know who she was, but I get this beautiful big poster of this female that's hand drawn, but she's got no clothes on from the top up. She's fully with herself, no top covering her breasts. And in Berlin, in Germany, if people have ever been there, the Germans in Berlin are quite liberal. So they might be riding home after work from the office in their suits and in their nice official clothing, but then get naked in the park to sunbathe for half an hour, at least from the top up, women included, and feel really, really secure in that. This was back in the 90s. I'm not saying I know how it is now. So it was very empowering to see that. And people would be swimming at the lakes, just going in with no bathing suits. It was very natural. So of course, when in Berlin, do what the Berliners are doing. So it gave me a whole new contact, especially as an American, which is such an uptight, body conscious culture, very non-healthy expressions of how to connect with naturalness, let's say. So I had been meeting her in my own experience there. And then when I looked at this image, I see this beautiful goddess, is what comes to me. I remember thinking, I don't know who you are, but I believe I do, never saw this image. And who it ended up being, I found years later, sitting on a lotus with her hands open, beautiful smile on her face, fully in her own power and her essence, holding a lotus one hand, and it was drawn by an American artist, a female I found out later, and an apple in the other was Prajnaparamita. So this was my first visual expression of knowing Dakini outside of myself. And I remember thinking, I don't know who you are, but I know I believe in you. And so then fast forward, 7 years later in 2002, I guess about 5 years later, I found myself in Hawaii. I was on the Big Island. I happened to be in a Buddhist temple at the South Shore of the Big Island, and then saw these expressions of Tibetan Buddhism in the temple there, and was like, wow, this is really, it's true. It's a thing, and for many people who meet Tibetan Buddhism, their first feeling is, wow, I'm so glad it's a thing, it's not just my thing. It's like there's something bigger going on. And so when I found these images within the tradition, I knew that was going to be a spiritual home.
Wonderful. I think as the common cliche goes, Hollywood will let people die in explosions and get killed with knives and guns, but freak out over the portrayal of breasts in their movies, right? But I think that was an absolutely beautiful introduction to your journey and to your encounter with Dakini. Gloria, Sonia, who would like to volunteer to be next?
Sister Gloria. Please.
I'll let Sonia go first.
Sister Gloria, that has wonderful experiences, so I would like to hear.
No problem. Just bounce between two more times, but no more.
Okay. I was born in Taiwan, and just like Raymond, we were born Buddhist, but not like a real Buddhist who knows how to liberate ourselves. We just kind of pray to the gods and goddesses, sort of like that. We'll pray to the Buddhas or Genrisi, but not for liberation. Actually, we were not taught like that. So, but I was looking for the truth of life. Like since I was very little, I couldn't find in that kind of Buddhism. So I actually converted myself into Christian when I was a teenager. So I was a Christian for about 10 years. And the God, which later I figure so-called God is like the ultimate truth, actually. Or you can say God is emptiness, in Buddhism. But I didn't know, so I tried to follow the Christianity for like 10 years. And I didn't find my answer there. I wanted to find the truth of the universe and truth of life. And I didn't find anything, so I tried to look for something else. And not until I was 28 that I found my guru. And after I found my guru, that was it was the first time I realized I am a Buddhist. Buddhist for liberation from samsara, and a Buddhist who actually can learn or step on some kind of path that you can learn about the truth of the universe and the truth of the life. And before that, I was not really a real Buddhist. And even after I took refuge from my guru and started my path of learning, as I would say, the real Buddhism, at the beginning, I didn't know anything about Dakini at all because my teacher, my guru, he started our practices from the conduct of bodhisattvas. And then we got into 5 years of meditation on emptiness. And in between the 5 years of meditation on emptiness training, he kind of mentioned something like that. So the first thing I know is Majiladran practice, zhi. But we know about Jid, and we started to learn about Jid, and we have Majiladran as our deity. At that time, I still don't know that she's a Dakini. Like I didn't the term of Dakini. It was like after maybe 3 years later, I started to know the term of Dakini. Then I started to like Google about it because Rinpoche doesn't talk much about it at that time. So I learned about some like Google information or Google knowledge. Then later, as our path started to progressive into a higher level of Tantra, then I started to learn about so-called Dakini. And then to me, the ultimate or the real Dakini is the true nature of mind, which is beyond male and female. But a lot of time for different kinds of reason, for the condition, for the beings, or the sentient beings or the disciples' condition at that time, or his or her capacity, they have to manifest into some kind of female form. That's what I learned. But the ultimate deity, the ultimate Dakini, I would think it's the true nature of mind, which is beyond male and female. And that's what I learned from my guru. Yeah, it's like that. But as years goes by, I started to step into like a broader working field for different centers. Like at the beginning, I was only trained by my guru in our own center. It was like a close-up learning system. So I had no contact with other centers. But after like 5 or 6 years of training by my Rinpoche and my guru, I started to be sent to other centers and working for other gurus. So I had some kind of contact with other centers, students, disciples, and I started to realize like many ladies, they want to be dakinis, but their concept about dakinis like totally beyond my imagination. Like they want to marry a Rinpoche, and Rinpoche's wife is Dakini. So I was like very shocked when I first learned about it. So that's what I know about Dakini, like from the point of view that I learned from my guru and from the point of view that I know from other people. It's like that. As for the archetype, I don't quite remember the first archetype that I know exactly is a Dakini. It's kind of like a gradual path, and I slowly learn about it and accept about it. So I really don't have a first strong impression of that. But later I know, okay, Majiladran is a Dakini. It's like that. And for like those are like formless Dakini. But for like Dakini with form, which is on the relative level, what I learned is like no matter man or woman, especially woman. For the word Dakini, on the relative level, it kind of means female, right? So it's like a female practitioners who dedicate her whole life, her body, speech, and mind in a full heart into Dharma activities and Dharma learning. And that's what I know about the relative Dakinis. It's like that.
Well, thank you so much, Gloria. I think I'm starting to see a pattern here, right? Like the Dakini, whether a tomboy or whether the literal consort of a male teacher, or whether an embodiment of emptiness, seems to touch our lives in all sorts of different forms, and appears to us, I think, in times when we need her to, when we need her, that particular manifestation. I'd like to pass on to Sonia to describe, a little bit about your encounter with Dakini. Take it away,
Wow.
Sonia.
Okay, Raymond, thank you. So this is an issue I really like to approach because it becomes an issue that brings a lot of misunderstanding in Buddhism and brings a lot of fantasy. And the Dakini aspects or the meaning of Dakini and the Dakini practice is extremely profound. We don't get in touch with that spontaneously or easily because we don't have awareness to realize we are getting in touch with that, with the Dakini energy, Dakini manifestation. So for me, Dakini, I can resume. It's like a messenger of wisdom on the path of transformation, linked to synchronicity and coincidence, as you were saying, Raymond. So this is quite deep because I, like Gloria, I was raised in a Catholic environment for many, many years. I even studied in a college where there were nuns, and my family really enjoyed me to be a nun and this and that. And since the beginning, I always had many questions, and the nuns didn't like it. I used to do many questions, and I wanted to know why Jesus Christ didn't have kids, why Jesus Christ didn't have wife. And those were very uncomfortable questions in that time for a young girl with 10 years old. And they used to say, you just read the Testament and you don't ask questions. You just focus in the reading, you just study, and you don't ask too much, please. And I always thought, but why can I ask? And then I asked my mom, and my mom said usually the same. Oh, I don't know how to answer to you, so you don't do those questions. If people say for you not to question, please don't do it. But I thought, why? I wanted to understand why. And then I also realized there were no female priests, and I get very upset. And I asked my mom, why can't female be priest like male? I don't understand. Don't they know how to read and write? Can they not give a liturgy like men do? And my mother began to say, oh, you don't do those questions. You don't take these issues seriously. You just respect the tradition. Don't go there. And I begin to realize that in my nature, since I was a kid, I had many, many questions about everything. And I was very curious, especially about the difference of treatment between male and female. And I realized that, for example, since a young age, that female were very scared and repressed, like they never shared what they really thought because they were scared of the being pointed out or not being polite, and because that was very masculine if they do this, like the tomboy that Venerable referred here. And I felt a little rebel since very young age. Even in the school, I was always questioning my teachers about a lot of things that they didn't fit me. Their explanations didn't fit to my awareness. I was thinking, this is weird what they are saying. Let me ask. But then I had a lot of problems, because I began to have problems with the teachers. They begin to put me aside and saying I did too much questions. I was incentivizing all the kids to be naughty and this and
Troublemaker.
that. Yeah, troublemaker. And I thought, well, I understand, and I felt a bit um, away. But I realized that many of my friends from school, for example, they came to me and they asked questions. They say, why do you ask this? Do you think females should teach, and do you think female could do the liturgy as a priest? And I said, of course, they have mouth, they can breathe just like men. Why shouldn't they could do liturgy? And then I realized this was with the age, I begin to read a lot of, for example, Freud, because I had a lot of, when I started in my teenager years and into some readings of Osho, I begin to wanted to know more about sexuality. And I begin to read about some aspects of the Freudian issues and Jung, Carl Jung, and all of that. And I realized, wow, there is a female side we all have that is very empowered and should be bring out and should be realized that is the same. There is no male or female. All the male, they have female aspects, and all the women have male aspects. So I begin to realize that. That's why I love psychology. And many, many years I was reading and reading and reading about that issue. And for me, it's Dakini is the manifestation of liberating energy in female form. Um, Sometimes they can be beautiful, and sometimes they can be very wrathful and can be horrendous, and they are decorated with skulls that has a meaning that can be scary to many people. For example, they represent liberation, and they often are depicted naked and dancing like a venerable mansion naked, because that
Yeah.
has a meaning. That is not by chance, that is not erotic, that is not pornographic, that
Yeah.
has a deep, deep meaning. So for me, what can I say? Elusive and playful. I think the Kinis are elusive and playful, and they embody the untamed feminine. So for me,
Yeah.
that is what is the Dakini and my contact with this feminine aspect that also male have, but I
Yeah.
don't know very well how to deal with that, in my
I
humble
think,
opinion.
yeah, very good point, Sonia. And I think it would be a whole separate conversation to talk about the men's relationship to the Dakini figure, the divinity, the archetype, the embodiment of what is ultimately genderless, the genderless enlightenment, but in the conventional world manifests with engendered qualities. But I also would like to point out that, I mean, like, I don't think it's outrageous to say that, like Catholicism, Buddhism also has structures that are very much gendered and tend to bias towards the men. Yet we see this rebel figure in the Dakini, right? She sticks out like a sore thumb. She asks questions, as Sonia says. She's striking, as Gloria points out, and as Venerable said, like, she bears her upper body, not in a sexual way or in a gendered erotic way, but just is just like that. I think this is a very fascinating figure, and I think that feeds all these different kinds of Dakini. I'd like to zoom in on, and in a second question, I would like to ask you the specific figures in the Vajrayana tradition that you have come across in your practice, or that perhaps you even teach to others. So perhaps maybe in terms of the specific religious or historical Dakinis, let's pass on to Venerable first. Would you please lead us first?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you to my sisters for sharing your deep personal truths. There's so many, first, I just want to say so many synchronicities and overlays with that. Although I'm maybe a little bit older than you, I can resonate and share with you, yes, the search for truth. Sister Sherab Dolma, that was also very compelling to me as a young girl. And I remember reading Socrates and Plato and looking for what is the truth. Sister Sonia, yes, also the Catholicism. My mother was Catholic and my father was more Native American tradition of nature. And I wasn't raised Buddhist at all. So it was quite surprising when I'll pick up with the image of meeting Prajnaparamita in this poster that my father sent to me in Berlin when I was about 26 or 27, because I wasn't raised Buddhist. I had gone to a small liberal arts college here in Maine. I had met one Buddhist who was in his beautiful saffron robes, a Theravadan practitioner from Sri Lanka, who happened to be at my college for a year, and had befriended him. But frankly speaking, from a young age, I investigated looking for truth within organized traditions. And even with Buddhism, I was like, no, let's put them all aside because there's no room for the female anywhere. And so thereupon was still encouraged to keep my own investigation going to look like why is she being left out in this very relative organized display of religions, of sacred practices. And so when I met Prajnaparamita, I kind of wrote to my father and said, this was long before the days of cell phones and email, who is this? Where did you get this? And he said, when I took you to meet your great aunt up in Vermont, she had this little postcard next to her bed of this hand-drawn art that someone had made in the 70s. And I just thought, Lisa would like to have that. So my birth name, Lisa, he sent it to me and said, before I sent it, I decided to have it blown up into a poster for you because I thought this will be something you really enjoy. So, this connection of deep awareness, like, so when I was young, I had said to my father, I'm definitely not going to be a Catholic. And my parents had divorced when I was young. And he said, that's okay. He said, for now, it's important to your mother. So again, like Sonia, I was making waves, asking the difficult questions. Why can't I serve on the altar? I know about bells and smells, all these things. I was the only girl on the boys' basketball team, had beaten out all these other boys to be on the team in class 8 when I was 14. And yet still, in my most important expression as a sacred spiritual practitioner, all the doors were still, the glass ceiling was even harder there than within the classroom academically or sports field. And so my father just encouraged me, look, when you get older, if you need a path, you'll find it yourself. And so when I saw this Prajnaparamita, I was like, well, I don't know who you are, but I know I believe in you. It was like seeing a mirror for myself. And then my father said, oh, well, I took the photo from your great aunt and I thought you'd like her, but I don't know any more about her either. So then I started thinking, well, maybe she'll reveal herself slowly. I'll just take this as an adventure, right? As the great journey unfolds. And so similar to Sister Doma, when I started, my teacher started with basic 4 noble truths, not even anything with Bodhisattva, just getting the foundation of the Buddhist practice under my feet. But what really compelled me was in this little artist studio that he was teaching out of here in Maine, the quote on the board said, believe nothing no matter who has said it, even if I have said it, unless it accords with your own knowing. Even if it doesn't make sense to you, even if I've said it, leave it alone, end quote, Buddha. And I thought, that's a teacher I can follow. That's someone turning you back to look at your own truth. And then it seemed the whole time with my root Lama, who was so wise, so kind, so open, that he was just meeting my questions and not just meeting them, but enjoying them, like happy that I had questions. And so at the beginning, I had even forgotten that much about Prajnaparamita. It wasn't like, oh, I've got to go find the goddess or really deeply seeking that out. But my path just happened synchronistically, to cross paths with someone who is a genuine Lama. And even in that point, the Geluk tradition doesn't really have as strong a connection with the Dakini figure. She comes more from the Sakya tradition, Vajrayogini, and the Dakinis and the Kaju are very prevalent. If you go into a Kaju monastery or nunnery, you'll see lots and lots of Dakinis on the wall. In the Geluk, not so much. I mean, a little bit, yes, some, but really in the tradition where you see this form, this particular form, is coming more from Sakya and from the Kaju. And so when I saw her, I was like, oh yes, of course. When I remember first walking into Jetsuma Tenzin Palmo's temple in Himachal Pradesh and weeping, thinking, I knew you were here. I knew you were here. And Jetsuma knew, even though I hadn't said anything to her, she said, maybe you want to go into the temple and you can go all the way up. And who was up on the top floor but Prajnaparamita? And so it was like, wow, coming home, And I just let things happen and unfold naturally. It's not, I don't think she works, the Dakini principle and the Dakini power and essence is more like we're finding that within ourselves. And so we don't really want to focus so externally on seeking something beyond ourselves. It's more like it's integrating. And so, yes, when you see then these symbols of the beautiful, of course, Machiklab drones on the wall in the temple, the other Dakinis, Paladin Namo is there, the protector, the great Pakma Dorje is there. So the great Vajrayogini is there, and she's got a whole fresco up on the wall in the temple at Donju Getseling. And then you meet all the practitioners there, all the nuns. They are clearly embodying the Dakini principle so beautifully, so open-heartedly, with wisdom, with joy, with playfulness, also with sometimes some wrath, some seriousness. And you're kind of like, all right, now this is really where my feet need to fall on the path. What I had studied prior to getting to that moment was doing a master's of theology and comparative religions. And what I did come to see was this unique female principle is not thought of as a god within all the traditions, but this female is always thought of as wisdom. So the Dakini is not really like the same. I wouldn't say it a little bit differently than what Sister Sher Abdulma said. I wouldn't say emptiness is like God, because God within theistic traditions is a creator God. And Dakini is a transcendent essence. She's wisdom that transcends, that moves through us, and is an essence of our own awareness. And yet she's not really creating anything. She's coming into her own awareness. And if we want to say anything, she's helping ourselves evolve. But there's nothing that's happening really from outside of us except for our own wish to evolve through us and beyond. And so she's often pictured holding in her left hand a skull cup, kind of drinking the nectars of awakening, of bodhicitta, of the mind of awakening. And those nectars also have ingredients of like primordial purity, primordial awareness, immortality, bodhicitta, universal wisdom. And that is a very specific way to embody the practice of the Buddhist awareness of awakening through Vajrayana. Now, in the theistic traditions, the Sophia, the goddess traditions, even the Mother Church is called the Mother. Those are seen as something totally different. So they're not really expressing, there's a sense of being created or having a creator, whereas the Dakini is just opening it wide up into emptiness, into oneness with what is experienced, without saying this is creation, this is pure awareness. So, this for me is like the most precious gift anyone, the Tibetans really brought out of Tibet in their most amazing way through such an oppressive situation that planted the opportunities for all of us really around the world, from Thailand to Hong Kong to Malaysia to Portugal to USA, bringing this wisdom and bringing this invitation to knowing ourselves in a much more complex and a much more integrated way that has much more to do with our own awareness and our own wisdom coming back into its own home, which is here in our heart mind. So the Dakini, like I said, even within Vajrayana Buddhism, it's not a principle that's as prevalent in every lineage of the four main lineages. However, of course, she's embodied by the lamas because they're the ones who give initiation. And no one embodies her, in my mind, better than His Holiness the Dalai Lama in terms of a male, if you want to say a male. She's really beyond male and female. Vajra Dakini would say, here there is no male, there is no female. But who's giving these empowerments and initiations to the sadhanas? But the male lamas, we see, perceived so merely labeled, but yes, embodied as male. But they're just as capable of being beautifully Vajrayogini. They're not limited by the appearance of gender and by this whole construct of physicality, identifying us as some kind of concrete form. So, of course, we all have connection with her. I know male practitioners in Ladakh who take her as their main yidam. So there's no reason not to do that. But for us, I think in the female form, let's say, of course, I'm born, even though I get kicked out of the women's bathrooms all around the world, thinks I'm a man, I'm quite tall. And then, of course, the haircut, and, it disturbs a lot of people. But then I laugh and say, no, really, born female by my mother. Thank you. Don't want to change that. And they hear that and they can laugh. So it's like finding a new way to just be integrated into oneness and not trying to change oh, there's a beautiful Prajnaparamita. So she's very close, exactly who I met. Except this artist who drew the one my father sent me was American. So instead of the Dorje and the Prajnaparamita, this is the Heart Sutra text she's holding in her left hand of Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Tayata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhi Swaha. Instead, in the version I had, she's holding in her right hand a lotus and in her left hand an apple, which of course, when I was in graduate school for theology, I was thinking, oh, the apple's really good. That's Eve's wisdom. Why did Eve get damned out of paradise? Because she was curious. She wanted to know, who am I really? And she bit the apple, and instead of being seen as a figure who's really awakening and wanting to know herself, she gets damned and is like, oh, you're damned and you brought Adam down too, so get out of paradise. And it's like Prajnaparamita is like, no, look, we're all Buddhas, we're all here to know ourselves deeply. And starting with the fact that you have Buddha nature, all you have to do is uncover that with naked awareness, with wide open heart. You see how open her arms are. So her heart is wide open. Her mind is wide open. The Vajra of the bliss emptiness is there. The invitation to the Prajnaparamita, the great wisdom of knowing the perfection of wisdom, is there, fully inviting. And she's in meditative equipoise as well with her other two hands. So this image shows like Four Noble Truths, shows clear awareness, shows so many things that can be transmitted just through the display, shows her regal appearance from Sambhogakaya with her head ornaments. So we can learn so many things by welcoming the questions from our own heart and asking them, which are then received and not told, oh, don't ask questions. A real teacher says, wonderful. A real teacher says to the students, I'm so glad you've been thinking about this. I'm so happy to hear your questions. They don't tell you, be quiet, shut up, don't ask questions. So this is the great invitation that the Dakini, that the Prajnaparamita is bringing. If you can find another visual of Prajnaparamita in her tantric form and more powerful. I would call this like a sutra form. In her tantric form, she's red and she would be holding the skull cup with the kartika, in the right hand, the hooked knife that's showing she's cutting off attachment to appearances. She's drinking the essence from a skull cup, from her own wisdom of the true essence of liberation. And it's a much more powerful. She's usually red, like the color of the fire of the eon of destruction. She's really going to flame out from that very peaceful, very beautiful, composed form into a much more expressive, dynamic, tantric form of activity. So if you can find the picture of the Pakma Dorje in Vajrayogini form in the red, then you see how quickly she can also move in very different appearances. And then there are many Dakinis that travel with her. So if you're doing a sadhana, you'd have 37 other Dakinis coming in, and, it builds up from there once you go deeper into the Tantra. I'd call that beautiful image that you just showed more like the sutra. She's holding the sutra text of Prajnaparamita. So she's inviting us first. We have to study the philosophy, become familiar with the concepts, and then build further.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for that, Venerable. I think as depending on our time, we will talk about more how we manifest Dakini as people, our everyday lives, and so this idea of both men and women and men, manifesting this enlightened quality that Prajnaparamita is ultimately genderless, and that men indeed should express Dakini qualities more often.
Oh, yes. I mean, definitely, Raymond, the essence, it's the essence that she's giving. It's not her gender at all. It's the essence of her message.
Yes. At the same time, I think now we could now perhaps move on to Gloria. Please share with us some of your experience with the so-called traditional figures of Dakinis in your tradition. Muted. Please unmute. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Okay. First, I would like to clarify one point
Perfect.
that
Wonderful.
Venerable just pointed out about I compare emptiness to God. Actually, I was only trying to express that I do not think that when when Jesus talked about God, he was really talking about like a human figure, God that he created something. So I believe that Jesus was talking about emptiness. But at that time, people, they could not understand emptiness. So he had to like somehow find a way to tell people this is the ultimate truth. And regarding the emptiness, the reason why I compare it to so-called God is because of based on the ground or the background of emptiness and everything, all phenomena can arise or can manifest. That's why I compare emptiness to God. So for me, I don't believe that Jesus was talking about that kind of God. I think he was talking about emptiness, the ultimate truth, which my guru Khenpo Tsutin Gyaltso Rinpoche, he also think that Jesus is a bodhisattva. So one year, I think it was year of 2000, we were in Singapore. And then we were having a retreat course. It was December 25th. And then he said, today is Jesus' birthday. Let's celebrate Jesus' birthday because he's also a bodhisattva. And then I have read some articles that they say that Jesus had come to actually Tibet to learn Tantra, like for 12 years. And they have research about that. And after 12 years of learning Tantra, then he has some kind of magic power that manifested from his realization of emptiness, I think.
Yeah, can I just say, thank you. I just want to say that storyline is completely not accurate, I think, because historically Tibetan Buddhism hadn't even manifested yet in the lifetime of Jesus in Tibet.
Mm-hmm.
So Jesus was predating Buddhism going to Tibet. Jesus was alive 600 years before Buddhism even reached Tibet. So I think we should be historically a little bit accurate in some of these storylines, okay? Because Jesus was living around, prior to CE, the Common Era. Jesus was born before that. In Tibetan Buddhism didn't come from Nalanda tradition into Tibet until 8th century. You understand?
Mm-hmm, I see.
So
yeah, that
the storyline we should
probably
be careful about, because
yes.
that wasn't even a possibility that he would have been.
Rick, I think regardless, I think we'll have a forum to talk about Jesus at some point, perhaps with a priest or something. But right now, I want to talk about Dakinis. So, if Gloria,
Yes.
if you could share less about a male Jewish preacher who lived in Roman Judea, and more about like the actual Dakinis that manifest in your teaching, in your practice.
Anyway, it was just something I read from Reader's Digest, which is a scientific research, and I think I am not a professional of that, so I'm just mentioning what I've heard. So probably the Venerable is more correct because she's an expert of that. But anyway, my point is that when I compared emptiness to God, it means like that. It means the everything arise on the basis of emptiness, which is what I think, what I consider is the essence of Dakinis that we learned in our lineage. Because the first actual Dakini we come in contact with is actually Majiladrun. And Majiladrun's famous sadhana is Zhi, right? So for the Zhi, we were learning. I'm not sure how other people learn Tantra deity practices, but in our lineage, we have to learn meditation on emptiness first. And when you have certain meditation experiences about emptiness, then my guru will authorize you to practice some kind of deity practices. And our first one is Majiladrun. And I remember how we first learned to supplicate to her as a female guru. And I remember in the content of the prayer, what really hit me really hard was he says the 5 poison are actually self-liberated. When I first learned that, I didn't know what it means. I just started to learn the meditation on emptiness for like 2-3 years, and I had some experiences, but I wouldn't know the essence of Vajrayana talking about using the 5 poison to liberate yourself. It's kind of like using poison to cure the illness you got from poison. So I was very curious about that. So for me, the Majiladrun, she helped me to realize the real essence of Dakinis, which is beyond male and female, is from that line of prayer. I mean, there are many lines of the prayer to Majiladrun, but that line really hit me really hard. So even now, when I think about that prayer, the Guru Yoga to Majiladrun, that's the first thing that comes to my mind is 5 poisons are self-liberated. And when the 5 poisons are self-liberated, that means male and females are self-liberated too. So there's no male and female. And for me, ever since I was young, I was not a typical girl either, like Sonia. Like I didn't understand why women were put down. And I was observing all the men, women, relatives, family, friends, and they're just so used to it. And I just could not understand why there's such differences. I don't feel any differences between me and a man, except for my body. So when I come in contact with this Majiladrun practices, this drip practices, that really helped me to confirm what I thought was actually, I wouldn't say correct, but when you say correct, there's a duality, right? So actually it confirmed what I thought, that this duality doesn't really exist. So that's what I learned from my first figure of so-called Dakini, like that. And I apologize for disappearing from the screen for 2 times because I had to get my power bank because I just finished leading my students for our annual retreat yesterday, and I just moved back to our monastery guest house. So I was trying to get things
Where's your monastery?
ready. Sorry, in Kathmandu, around Boda area.
Ah, lovely.
Yeah. So
Yes,
I wasn't staying
that's
in our
lovely.
guest house. Sorry, please go on.
So yeah, I think there was a bit of a lag in time, but in any case, thank you very much, Gloria.
Yes.
Now, Sonia, I would like to move on to you, and then we can discuss one final question towards 9:30. Yes, please.
I would like to simplify and not put. I would like to simplify a bit and put this just a more, connected to the topic and not so difficult for people that are listening to us that don't know what is emptiness and this kind of things. Many people, they don't really understand the concept of emptiness, and it's quite a difficult concept to understand from the beginning. So I will just report to your question and be very simple and direct, because other way we will waste and not understand fundamentally. As I think I understood your question was, what kind of Dakini have come across to my practice, and
yes, exactly.
which figures do I feel karmically connected? Did I understand wrong your question, Raymond?
No, not at all. So we're talking about the traditional, the traditional figures that you've come across in your practice. Yeah. Hello. The traditional figures that you've come across
to my practice, because I'm not hearing well. You mean that come across to my practice, right?
Yes. Yes.
There are many. First, I feel very karmically connected with Mandarava. I find Mandarava extremely. I don't know if you are hearing me correctly.
It looks like we're losing Sonia.
Yes.
Let's see if she returns to us.
She mentioned Princess Mandarava, who was a consort of Padmasambhava, who was an Indian princess. Yep. And this kind of brings us back to where the Dakini principle comes from. It's actually from Indian Tantra, from Hindu practice, where Vajrayana actually has its roots in Tantrayana coming from India. And you'll find that the Dakini principle there is much more predated to even Buddhism up in Tibet as it moved around. It was integrated in from Hinduism, what we call Hinduism, but were really local practices of the people living in India who were the Tantrikas, who were the ones who sometimes went way against this mainstream of the society, living in charnel grounds, living around cemeteries. You see here on the right of Vajrayogini, and the name Vajrayogini is the Sanskrit term for her, which would come into the Tibetan as Dorje Pakmo, the great mother, the great wrathful mother. And she's red, she's flaming, she's got all this fire around her. She is the power of creation, the power of destruction. And Princess Mandarava was an Indian princess who, in the Tibetan Buddhist diaspora of the Vajrayana, Guru Rinpoche, Padmasambhava, met and took as a consort, and who was really seen as also a yogini with him, and was shown to have a great affinity to Tantra and practices, and became really very realized when she was with Guru Rinpoche. Now, Princess Mandarava is very influential and very revered, and I'll let Sonia pick it up from there. But especially, she's got a whole room in the Donju Getsaling nunnery in Himachal Pradesh in India, where it's the Princess Mandarava room. So I just tried to pick up for you, Sonia. I'll shut up now.
Thank you so much, because Dakinis are very playful, and these things happens all the time. So I'm sorry, I don't know why my connection fell down precisely when I was talking about my sweet Mandarava. I mean, I have a deep connection with Princess Mandarava because it was the first. Yeah, she's quite interesting. Anyway, because my first deep experience with the Dakini aspect, it was with her. I must confess, it was in India, in Tsopema in 2016. I had a very amazing experience in Mandarava place, and I love this photo because she's dressed with an Indian sari because she was Indian. This is something that usually you don't see in Tibetan Buddhism. She's always dressed like a Tibetan with the Tibetan eyes. And I love this. You see, I thought, wow, Mandarava, she was Indian. She is here. It's very, very special. And almost nobody talk about Mandarava. So that's why I said, there must be something wrong with this character, with this lady, because when nobody talks about something, something is there, when you talk about too much about one thing and you hide another, then since that day I did research on Princess Mandarava, and I have a deep connection. And she always manifests in my life, as you see. Connection was cut, and so many other things, these manifestations, coincident, not coincident. This is the Dakini display, in my humble opinion. So my connection, my deep connection, and my karmically affinity is with Mandarava for many reasons, because I don't know. I don't have a logical reason to explain directly, but I have a reason to explain because she was quite a rebel for her time, according to history. She refused to man the most richest men and kings and everybody. So that is nice already, you see. She refused to have titles, and this is wonderful. I think so many things to learn from Mandarava nowadays. I think we should really put our eyes on her. That's what I'm trying to do with my research about her, which is very difficult. You don't find much about her except in Indian tantric texts that are not even translated. So that's what I'm doing, and it's a very hard work. Then the Dakini that appears more in my practice or in my daily life is Vajrayogini. Yeah, it's quite interesting. I begin to have some interesting moments of my practice and of my life, situations that were quite intense and very, very tough. And this was precisely the Dakini aspect that appeared to me. I don't know. I will not enter too much explaining about Vajrayogini. That's not the purpose of this conversation. But it's just to give an example that this image has a lot of meaning, has a lot of symbols. It is an archetype also of empower. You know, in times of my life when everything was against me, everything was like falling apart, falling down, she was always there. She was always saying, don't give up. Just don't be afraid. Just go. Just don't care. And she showed me that we all women have this aspect, but it is very uncovered for the patriarchate system in Tibetan Buddhism. And she is the queen of Dakinis for me. So why should women be fear? Why should women be not teaching? Why don't we have more female teachers? So I begin to say, okay, Vajrayogini, you are opening my eyes. You are doing my life a hell, but I accept. I accept, and let's begin to take you there and show you and tell people you are the queen of the Dakinis. And that's it. So I feel extremely joyful to talk about this. It gives me a huge joy because it comes deeply from inside. Dakini aspect is deep inside. It's not based on a form. It's not based on the Indian study of Mandarava, but that has a deep meaning because we must, as Venerable saying, be truthful and faithful to history. And Mandarava, she was Indian. Padmasambhava, he was Indian. We must respect, we must pay homage to the tradition. Nalanda is a very important tradition. Vajrayogini image is here. I don't want to enter more in detail. Those were the Dakinis that really totally changed my life, I can say. Thank you. I don't know if I was clear.
Absolutely clear. I think all three of our guests have outlined some very important points about their personal practice, and I think what I'd like to do with the remaining about 20 minutes of main discussion, followed by perhaps a few brief questions from viewers, is this is an introductory discussion about Dakini, and I think we've covered the sort of like the more orthodox aspect of looking at Dakinis, the figures, the archetypes, their presence within the tradition of Vajrayana. Now let's bring it to your contemporary daily life, and I think this is something that we'd all like to hear about and share with each other. Is Venerable alluded to this earlier with men manifesting Dakini, but what about you as women, as embodied in this conventional world, manifesting Dakini? How do you do that? What do you personally do? How would you advise women to manifest Dakini? Let's discuss this for the remainder of the session, and then I'll be opening the floor to potential questions should anyone have any. So Venerable, can we start off with you again, and then we'll do another round with Gloria and then with Sonia.
Sure, thank you. Yes, and thank you to Sonia and to Sister Sherab Droma for their personal, wonderful sharings, and for being, great Dakini sisters. I think that, it starts first with our own acceptance, our own embrace of the Dakini principle on a very deep heart level. So she's also called the Bliss Queen. So there's so much joy there, that we start with that. We start with what brings us joy in our practice. Not just our practice of doing a formal practice in the morning or doing sadhanas or meditation, but our practice of just being a good human being, like being joyful when the ladies are kicking you out of the bathroom, as I said, saying, hey, this is the women's bathroom, and being like, yeah, I know, I'm in the right place. Or standing in line every time I leave India, having to get screened and everyone pushing me towards the male line saying, hey, I'm in the right line. I can, like being joyful, and everyone laughs. And then they say, oh, sorry. I say, oh, I'm not sorry. I'm so glad I'm female. Joy is there in every bit of the juice of flavor, whether you're sitting in the temple with 114 sisters doing the Chud practice, doing the Vajrayogini sadhana, and joy is there when you're moving throughout the world and no one's ever seen any appearance like, believe me. I mean, I know most people have never seen any appearance like this before, especially in the West. We're not a Buddhist country. People often say that they've never seen the robes before, but they kind of recognize it because they remember the Dalai Lama still and say, oh, namaste, you're Buddhist. And so it brings beauty. It brings an opening of a conversation. And I don't say, oh, we don't say namaste. I just say, oh, namaste, and then just have a nice, joyful connection with whoever's with you. This is the real principle of the awareness that the Dakini is bringing to us. It's the awareness of our own innate presence, our own innate power of bodhicitta, of the mind of awakening that is there, both individually as an appearance within ourselves, integrating her wisdom, her joy, her compassion, her bodhicitta, but then connecting and transforming the entire environment wherever we go. And so she is, as Sonia mentioned, also asking us sometimes to go to some pretty scary places within our own experience. She's not going to spare us of that because she wants us to transcend. She's both showing this creative, amazing, she's looking up into the sense of transcending. She's also called a sky walker, sky dancer. I really connect with that. I mean, my whole, if someone asked me about, I had a nice lunch with some old friends and my sister, who's my oldest friend in this life. And we all talked about what was our best quality. And I said, courage. And they all said, oh, yeah, you're really fearless. And it's not true. I'm not fearless. I have moments where I'm on my edge. But it's that moment where I'm like, all right, let's go. Let's go onward. Let's expand through this. And so she shows also the reality of the skulls, conquering our kleshas, conquering our 52 fears and human limitations, so that we can actually become into this great awareness that nothing can hold us back from the bliss, from the emptiness, from the wisdom, from the bodhicitta, the mind that really loves the oneness of creation. And so that I try to take wherever I go. And luckily, and I'm really pleased to say that I get to go many amazing places in this life that I could have never dreamt when I was a girl, thinking I'll have a great adventure in this life. And I will search for that truth, and I will investigate it. I will debate it. I will challenge it. I will discuss it. I will share it. I will honor others' truth, because who knows, we can all learn more from each other's truth. It doesn't mean there's only one, but if we know what our oneness is within our own heart, that's Vajrayogini's, to me, that's her great invitation, which is just keep evolving that. I like to say my main experience of being with the Dakini in practice is, yes, doing the sadhanas, keeping a commitment and a connection with her, but it's more just being in the moment, being able to express with wisdom, with compassion, loving kindness, joy, equanimity. And in that oneness of equanimity, that means whoever I meet, whether it's an animal, a cat, an insect, a bird, turkey, deer, whatever, human being, male, female, whatever these days, everyone doesn't even want these labels, just whoever's in front of me, to be there with them in presence. And if it's with a pure joy, that's fine. If that's not the right essence in the moment, then Vajrayogini knows how with wisdom to just be a pure presence and to wait for whatever's needed to be able to express and share. And so I think this is the way we really embody hers through our commitment in our mind, this mind bodhicitta, the mind of awakening. That means we truly want to be in a oneness, in a deep expression, in a deep integration, both from our own subjective side, but that we're not existing in a vacuum. We're in a deep interdependence with all that is. And Vajrayogini's presence is an invitation to move with clarity. That fire around her is giving clear awareness of that. And then with joy, her whole body is just expressing like this glorious dance of moving through space. And space isn't just like outer space, the moon and things like this. And it's not even just like space within a confined building or in a border of a country. Space is what holds everything together. She's the great skywalker through space, knowing that it's all held together. Whatever we experience is arising through space. It's arising through the power of our presence within that space, which is arising through the space of our mind, recognizing. That's how I do it.
Marvelous, wonderful. Gloria, Sharadroma, would you please share a little bit about what we like to discuss?
Yeah, in terms of manifesting the Dakini essence in like daily life,
Yes.
I think I have 3 points. First one is that there's a very famous female leader in Taiwan. Once, because she's very powerful, and once there's this Western reporter asked her, how do you get to this position as a female? And I really love her answer. She said, you don't focus on being different. Like there's a difference between male and female. You just focus on what you need to do. So I thought, wow, that is great. Yeah. So she went beyond the question, actually. And then the second one was like both Venerable and Sister Sonia mentioned about being brave, and in our lineage, we say being a little bit crazy. Like one of our lineage teacher, Lama Denpa, came to my annual retreat, my students' annual retreat. I invited him to give a talk in our annual retreat. And then he was saying, oh, Gloria is my Dharma sister. I've known her for many years. I know her very well. And she's a little bit crazy. Like a little bit crazy, meaning that we don't trap ourselves in this conventional concept about female and male, or even all kinds of duality concepts. So sometimes you have to be a little bit crazy, kind of rebel. Then you can go beyond, or go get liberated from those boundaries that bound us in duality concept. And the third point I think I like to do, or I've been doing, is I'm not afraid of showing my feminine aspect. Like, yes, I like long hair, and sometimes I like to be dressed a little bit sexy. So I have a female body. Like men, they like to show their six pack. So I have a female body. I can show whatever I have or I want. But I can go a little bit crazy and go beyond the duality and just focus on what I need to do as a human being. So that's how I do it in my life. Like that. Thank you.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Thank you. Very
Sonia, you're up next. And I think we've got about 10 minutes, and then we'll round up the main conversation and allow questions on the floor.
Yeah, no, I for me, it's in my daily life, I try to express the Dakini aspect by being near to women and explain them that fear is something that doesn't exist, and that women are not inferior to men, and that women, they are brave by nature. It's just they repress their nature, and they are educated by the society and by many things to repress their opinions, to repress their nature, to have a very maternal figure. And I try to explain women that they should embrace, as Venerable said, and Sister Gloria, they should embrace their female with joy. I am a female. I am very happy to be a woman. You know, I'm very happy. This is I can attain enlightenment. It's not because I'm in a female body. I will not attain enlightenment. Is not because I'm a female. I cannot give an opinion or have my proper opinion. It's not because I'm a female. I must be disrespectful or disrespected. And it's not because I'm a female. I should not be seen as somebody that is a tantric vow, as a symbol of wisdom. So this is a tantric vow. We don't even need to mention this to Vajrayana practitioners. You know, women are should be seen as wisdom, and this is what I try to do in my daily life when I deal with women: is try to encourage them to go further, to never give up their dreams, to never give up their the things they want to do just because somebody told them it was not proper, it was not suitable for a woman, it's not a female good behavior, this and that. And I also have a female body. I really like it. I'm feeling very joyful to have it. As Gloria, I like long hair. I feel very happy to wear makeup, and I don't see any problem in that. I feel very good in that. I could also have my head shave. I will feel very good in that. The important is the essence, the feminine essence, and to be good, to feel good in our own skin, and especially to feel the power and to break the patterns, because this is also a Dakini aspect that we should bring to our lives, is to break concepts, to cut through. People are used to this. You just do the opposite. If they get shocked, maybe something in their minds was too much sticky. So they need to get this openness. That's why emptiness, this space.
Yeah.
So Dakinis also are here to deconstruct this, to be open, give this space. And especially that's why, for example, just to finish, many great practitioners, great masters in deep moments in their practice and in their life, they were challenged by the Dakinis. They came to challenge them precisely to give that gap, to give that space, to give this openness. And so for me, the Dakini aspect in daily life is this: is show you are brave, show you are not scared, show you are feeling very good to be a woman, showing that in the ultimate level, there is no male or female. It's just, transcending all these aspects, and just be playful and joyful, enjoy it. That's all I have to say. Thank you so much for your kindness. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonia. You cannot transcend gender without embracing your own first, right? So I think
I think so.
I think this concludes our formal discussion. I'd like to thank the Venerable Sherab, Sonia, everyone for your valuable inputs. I hope you've enjoyed this conversation as much as I have. And I think if there are any questions, I've now throw it open. Anyone who would like to ask any specific dialogue partner something, please go ahead. And we'll continue for about maybe no more than 10 to 15 minutes, and then we will close up the tonight's program. So please feel free to ask any of our speakers a question. Oh, and they can ask questions to each other as well. So that's a good reminder.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your kindness, sisters. I'm grateful to be here discussing this with you. And I would like just to clarify one thing, because you said previously, Raymond, you said to teach. I don't teach, okay? I'm not a teacher. I don't teach nothing. I'm just a student, and I just share some thoughts. I'm not a teacher. I don't teach absolutely nothing. I just learn. Thank you.
For real.
Just wanted
Sure.
to clarify that. Venerable and Gloria, they teach. I just learn. Thank you.
No problem. Or perhaps you're not a teacher.
No questions from the answer from the audience?
Yes, well, I mean, I think if there are no questions, I think we can close up the conversation and conclude with a felicitation and a blessing to that the things that we've learned tonight can be dedicated to benefiting all beings in all time and space. And so I would thank you, everybody, for a lovely evening. And Samishka, please come in and help us close up the conversation.
Thank you very much. That was a very lovely conversation. I enjoyed it a lot. So before we conclude the session, I think we have some announcement. Yes, so we are going to have a new lecture series, new Dharma lecture series, which will be entitled The Power of Great Compassion. Uh, um, there will be a talk and also a guided meditation. So please do join us on 12th of March as well. So yes, thank you so much for joining us. Let's conclude the session. I would like to invite each one of you to have to give a small dedication prayer, and then at last I'll read the 4 great vows. So I would like to invite Venerable Tenzin Dasel to please give a small dedication prayer.
Well, I'd say, Bodhi mind, precious and sublime, may it arise where it has not arisen, and where it has arisen, may it flourish and grow forever more and more. And especially may Vajrayogini and her fatherly consort, who's always with her, Sri Heruka, as her staff over her shoulder, travel in unity everywhere with wisdom and compassion, spreading the great promise of the awakening mind to establish all in sorrowless bliss, immeasurable loving kindness, immeasurable compassion, with equanimity, never leaving anybody or anything, anyone, any appearance outside of that pure dedication, pure motivation, and pure intention.
Sister Sonia.
I will like to dedicate the merits, if there are some, from this small conversation to all Mother Sentient beings, and particular to all women that were listening to me and to my friends and to Sattva Project. I just hope they can feel inspired with the Dakini aspect and can begin to embody it in their daily lives and begin to realize their power, their own power, so they can manifest it genuinely and with a true heart of compassion. So may all beings benefit from these dialogues. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Sister Gloria.
I'll just sing a dedication prayer composed by Guru Khenpo Chutrim Gamso Rinpoche. All you sentient beings, I have a good or bad connection with. As soon as you have left this confused dimension, may you be born in the Western Sukhavati, and once you're born there, complete the bhumis and the paths.
Thank you so much. That was so beautiful.
Thank you.
Brother Raymond.
Well, I felt Gloria Sharup's dedication deeply, because as if I understand correctly, she the dedication mentioned Sukhavati, which is in the Chinese Pure Land tradition comparable to the Western Pure Land of Amitabha Buddha. And so while I'm not going to embarrass myself with my awful singing voice, I certainly would like to dedicate this talk to all beings and hope that they may see Amitabha Buddha at the end of their lives and be reborn in the sublime Pure Land, where all beings are shortly going to become Buddhas and return to us to help sentient beings endlessly. And Namo Amitofo. Namo Amitofo. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. So thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody.
you.
I wish you all a good
Thank
night,
you.
and all our audience members a very good night. Thank you for joining us.
And thank you to
Thanks,
Thank
Sonia,
you.
and thank you to
Thank you
everyone
to
at
Safa
Safa
for
Project.
organizing. Thank you to the fellow panelists.
Thank
and
you,
to
Raymond.
everybody who organized, and to Brother Wang and Brother Sherab for helping
Chang.
us. Brother Chang, sorry, and Brother Sherab Wang for
Chang.
being behind the scenes and keeping Sattva, bringing these beautiful platforms to benefit everybody who's interested. And be well, everybody. See you again.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you
Be
very
well.
much.
I love it.
Bye.
Thank you.
Have a
Bye-bye.
nice day in Nepal. Bye. Have a wonderful